Welcome back to my channel, guys, and today I'm going to be doing a review of Underground Season 2 Episode 2. So let's jump right on in. I'm not going to cover every point because my last video was kind of long, but before we get started, I do want to thank these people that watched my video and actually commented. Lala Mosley, Nicole Nichelle, Taiwan Carr, who also does videos. Nicole Nichelle also does videos as well, and Sean Kent TV. They also do videos on Underground as well, so you should definitely go check out their videos on Underground. So let's jump into this episode. The first thing that we see happen is Daniel leaving work early, and he comes home to his wife and he writes the word love on a piece of paper and he gives it to her. She looks at it for a few seconds, cherishes it, and then she rips it up. And my heart sank when she ripped up that piece of paper. We know that during that time, slaves were not allowed to read. They did not want them to have any idea of words or thought because they just wanted you to do what they wanted you to do. So it was sad that she ripped up that piece of paper, but in the long run, she was looking out for herself and obviously her family. Moving on, we see Rosalie, and she is packing some things, and while she's packing, she's crying because she's sad that John has died. She's processing her feelings, but she's also in a rush. An older gentleman comes up to her and says that they put out a hold on the cargo for a couple of days so you can rest easy, get yourself together. She's continuing on packing, and they didn't shoot this episode in order. I'm sure they did that by design. We're going to jump over to Elizabeth. We see Elizabeth is grieving, but more than anything, we see that she's angry. She's upset. When we see the scene where she's on the steps of where John was shot, they're taking away his body, and there are a lot of people milling around, but nobody comes up to her to console her or comfort her. And that really bothered me, but it made me think of right now. If something like that happened, people would take out their phones and say World Star. Nobody would go up to her and actually comfort her or console her in her time of grief. I completely understand why Elizabeth feels the way she feels. I couldn't imagine losing a husband that way, in the way that she did. Georgia really steps up in this episode and takes it upon herself to comfort Elizabeth and pretty much just be there for her so that she doesn't slip into a depression. We see that there's a scene between Rosalie and Elizabeth, and Rosalie really doesn't know how to act around Elizabeth. She doesn't know what to say, and I understand why everybody deals with death differently. So the fact that Rosalie didn't know what to say, I understand that. She came close to Elizabeth, but she never actually put her hand on Elizabeth, which was kind of weird. We're gonna go to the scene where Rosalie is in the basement with Harriet and Georgia, and they're making lunch, and she's plucking a turkey, and Harriet falls out. She goes to sleep. I'm not really sure. Georgia mentions that she thought the spells were part of the mystique of Harriet, and Rosalie says she has them sometimes. The history on that to me is not clear, whether it was narcolepsy or seizures. I have to read up more on that, but that was a very interesting point that they put in there, and they want us to go and read for ourselves what actually happened. When Harriet wakes up, she tells Rosalie that the plan has changed. Obviously, they were going to go on the trip together, but now she's going by herself. Rosalie is kind of upset that she is going by herself. Noah's not there. John is dead. Nothing seems to be going right for her. Harriet tells her, I've trained you, listen to your instincts, follow your gut basically, and you'll be fine. We see Rosalie go on the journey with the two runaways, or was it three runaways, where they're looking for notches on the trees, which is a sign for Rosalie. That's the next thing that she's looking for, is a horse and a carriage. Eventually she finds it right after one of the men says, "Are we lost?" Which to me was kind of irritating because she's doing all the work and the only thing you can ask her is, "Are we lost?" So she finds the carriage. Run by day, rest by night, and they get in the carriage, and I guess that's where they're going to sleep for the night. Let's go back to Elizabeth. She was on an emotional journey this episode. Georgia takes her to the boarding house where Georgia lives, and Georgia reveals that her husband passed away and she is also a widow. He was a carpenter. That's why they have all those compartments in the house, and she's showing her where the runaways can stay when they come to the house. And Elizabeth asks her, "You're not afraid of the boarders telling people that you're part of the Underground Railroad?" And she says, "No, most of them are friends of the cause." Later that night, she gets visited by Valentine, who she also gave some of John's old clothes. And Valentine tells her about the 39 lashes that the overseer was allowed to give them. Not 40, not 35, but 39. And they weren't allowed to receive any more, I guess, or any less than 39 when they did get lashes. And he says that's the only thing he could think about, and he used to lay in bed at night thinking about that number. And he got to the point where he couldn't sleep anymore. And I think he's saying all this stuff to comfort Elizabeth. I don't know if she was comforted by that fact, but afterwards you see her pulling down a mirror, and it has a gun in it. So Elizabeth is looking to get revenge, in my opinion. So we cut to the scene where I don't know if they're at the place where John died, but Elizabeth is sitting there and her ears, I don't know if her ears are ringing, but they want you to think that she is zeroed in on revenge. She's clutching her purse, which has the gun in it. Georgia sees this. She goes up to her, she talks to her, and she's saying that if you shoot somebody right now, what is that gonna do for you, for John? You just be shooting them for yourself. Elizabeth seems to not she understood, but I don't think that she really was listening to everything that Georgia was saying. But she doesn't shoot anyone. She looks like she was looking for John's killer. We go to the funeral. There's only a few people at the funeral. Elizabeth mentioned to Georgia that she was mad that Rosalie couldn't come to the funeral, and Georgia seems to understand Rosalie's situation. She doesn't know how to deal with this death or this grief. Rosalie probably feels partly responsible that John has died because he was helping them try to get Noah back. Moving on to Harriet, she goes to the house and she says the phrase, "A friend of a friend sent me." The lady brings out the pictures. First of all, the lady looks weird. Like something's wrong, something's off. She brings out the pictures anyways. Rosalie tells her who's on the pictures. The lady mentions that she thought Moses was coming, and Rosalie says the plan has changed, but the cargo is still the same. You need food, so she gave her the basket with the food, and the lady says the well is out back, and she closes the door. As soon as she closes the door, Rosalie runs because she could tell something wasn't right. You see the lady inside with Patty Cannon, and she's holding the lady hostage. Her writer is there, Mr. Donahue, and she's pointing the gun at her son, basically saying, "If you don't tell me where Moses is, I'm gonna kill him." And the boy is just playing with the gun. That scene where the lady was held hostage was weird in my opinion, but I could definitely see something like that happening. The lady tells her all that she knows about Rosalie, which they call Black Rose, and I love the nickname. So Rosalie runs back into the forest, and what I forgot to mention earlier was that when Harriet had her vision, she saw Rosalie on seeing the runaways off in a boat, and Rosalie had a look on her face of accomplishment. So moving on, we're gonna go to the Rowe plantation and Miss Ernestine and her abusive man, which I found out his name is Hicks. Hicks is rubbing her feet. He rubs her all the way up to her neck or something like that, and he says, I didn't mean to hurt you. I would do anything for you. You would do anything for me. He asks her for help. He says if a girl's gonna come to you, she's gonna need a whatever the drug was that they used back then to get rid of a child, which I didn't know they were doing abortions back then either, but everybody says there's nothing new under the sun. So the girl comes to her in the field and she asks her for the medicine, which was laying right there. She had brought it out to the field with her. Well, she asks her, "Who do you know who the father is?" And she said, "I only laid with him one time." And she also says, "He's not the fathering type. People would talk about me, but then they would help me raise the child," which we all know is true of people who have children out of wedlock. So after she says that, she asks her, "Do you have children?" And she says, "Yes, I do. They were the best thing that ever happened to me." After she said that, the girl walked away. She didn't take the medicine. So in that moment, she had changed her mind. She wanted to keep the baby. Come back to the nighttime, and Hicks is dragging the girl into their cabin or wherever they're staying, and he asks Ernestine, "Where's the medicine?" And in that moment, I was hoping to see the strong Ernestine that I know and remember and love, but I did not see her because she pointed to where the medicine was. And in that moment, I think she was thinking that if I don't tell him where it is, he's gonna hit me, he's gonna slap her, and this could be bad for me. I think she was thinking about herself. So she told him where the medicine was, and he forced it down her throat. Well, later on that night, Ernestine slips out of the house and she goes down to the tree with the bottles, and the girl is there underneath the tree. She's got on white and there's blood everywhere, so obviously it already happened. That scene was a lot because where was the womanhood? Where was the unity? We're gonna move on to Noah. I want to talk about Noah really quickly. Noah was in the back of the wagon. He picked his lock on the shackles that they had on his hands, and he was able to get himself free. He did all this with a bag over his head. And then after that, after he was able to get free, he took it upon himself to take the axle or whatever was holding the wagon together so that it falls apart. So he prepares himself for it to fall apart, and then they're trying to put the thing back, trying to put it back together. They don't ask him for his help, of course, and he's sitting there laughing, enjoying himself, laughing at them because they don't know how to put it back together. And he's telling them, "Oh, you're doing it wrong, blah, blah, blah." And they come over to him. I guess they want to antagonize him because they're irritated, and they take the ring that he was going to give Rosalie. And he says, "The first thing I'm going to do is get that ring back." The people that were talking, I don't know what they were, but they had a thick accent. The men that took him finally get the wagon back together. There's obviously a man in a separate wagon, and they finally get to their destination. Noah gets a hold of the man in the second wagon who's like by himself, like he's above the rest of the men, and he puts a gun to his head and he says, "Give me back my ring." So he gives it back to him. He asks who the master was, and bam, we see Kato. Kato says, "I'm the master." And I already knew it was Kato, but I was just like so shocked that he said that he was the master. As we all know, last season he got a hold of some money, so I'm sure the money put him in the position that he's in right now. I'm excited to see where that story is going, but I still don't like Kato. I can't say that I wouldn't make the same choices. And the last thing we see is Patty Cannon putting a gun in Rosalie's shoulder, and Rosalie taking off her shirt to reveal to us that she's pregnant, which was crazy because we could all see that there was kind of a weight gain in her face. So I was wondering if they were going to go ahead and write that into the storyline, which they did. I wonder if Harriet knows that she's pregnant, and what are they like? If Harriet knows that she's pregnant, then why would she not want her to go get Noah? I don't know. There's a lot of questions. I didn't touch on Miss Ernestine's husband telling her that her heart had gone cold, but that was the most important thing he said to me, was that your heart went cold and your kids could tell that your heart went cold because Rosalie ran. The last thing I wanted to mention was about the bottle trees, which were used to keep the evil spirits away. that was very important point to me that they put in there, which I went and looked up after the episode. And I also wanted to mention about Patty Cannon. The biographer at first asked her, why shouldn't I be writing about Harriet Tubman? And to me, she didn't give a good answer as to why he shouldn't. So, you guys, I will be looking forward to the next episode. If you do reviews for Underground, let me know, because I definitely want to watch your review of the episode. Also, if anybody knows if Harriet Tubman had seizures or was it narcolepsy, please let me know. This episode moved kind of slow, but it was packed full of information that we all needed to know. I'm excited about what's to come in the next episode. Definitely check out some more of my videos, and thanks for watching.